Hi, my name's Gabby. Tell me, have you ever had such a thing that you suddenly changed your tastes and preferences? Let's say you loved chocolate ice cream all your life, but once you tried pistachio and realized that now it's your favorite and you won't even look at another one? Recently, a situation occurred in my life after which I seriously wondered if we really know ourselves and our preferences well. The thing is that I fell in love with my classmate, and it happened so suddenly and unexpectedly that I still can't believe it. Do you want to know how it all happened? Then watch this video until the end. I will be glad if you support me, and after watching it, put a like and subscribe to our channel. It's worth starting this story from afar. In the first year of high school, we had a new guy, Steve. An ordinary guy, quite sociable, cheerful, smart. I wouldn't say that he's an unreal handsome man, but he is very charming and cute. During the first year, the girls ran after Steve in a crowd, trying to attract his attention in every possible way. They helped him with his studies and asked for help, put on beautiful dresses, invited him to go for a walk and to the movies. But Steve didn't react to their attempts in any way, communicating with absolutely everyone in the same way. I've never liked Steve. He was absolutely not my type. We rarely crossed paths in class. We had no mutual friends. A year later, the girls calmed down. A new guy appeared in the class, and they switched their attention to him. Steve, however, seemed to have exhaled and began to go to school parties and general hangouts more calmly. By the way, he didn't choose a girl, which greatly upset all the applicants. In the new year, I chose Chinese as an extra course. None of my friends supported me, so I was worried that I would be alone in an unfamiliar environment. But when I came to the first lesson, I suddenly found Steve there. He waved at me, inviting me to sit together. I gladly agreed. So we started communicating more. I wouldn't say that we became friends, but at lunch, we would sit together and chat about something. A year ago, all the local beauties would have declared war on me for such behavior, but now everything was fine. 6 months later, I noticed that Steve began to pay more attention to me than was required. He accompanied me home if our classes ended at the same time, gave me some small but pleasant gifts, and always treated me to something during lunch. I knew that he probably liked me, but I still didn't like him, so I didn't give him any hope. Every time I stopped his attempts to ask me out on a date, but soon Steve became more insistent. First, he confessed. One day, during a break, we were doing Chinese homework together, sitting in the school park. Suddenly, Steve awkwardly took my hand and said that he had liked me for a long time, from the moment he first saw me. Steve didn't know how to get closer to me, and at the beginning of the year, he accidentally saw that I had chosen Chinese as an extra course, so he also signed up. Steve was glad that we became friends, but he didn't want to be just friends. Of course, like any girl, I was pleased with his attention and recognition, but I couldn't reciprocate. By the way, at that time, I had never had a relationship, and I didn't plan to start one. All the guys around me didn't seem cool enough to date. Steve was very upset by my refusal. Apparently, he was setting himself up for a positive answer because even after I told him that we could only be friends, Steve asked me to take my time and think about everything carefully again. And then my personal hell began. I would never have thought that the usually calm and adequate Steve could behave so inadequately. He texted and called me at any time of the day or night, showered me with gifts, came to my house to wait for me and find out where and with whom I go, even somehow met my mother. At school, he also didn't give me a pass. He always tried to sit closer, arranged it so that we turned out to be project partners, threw notes with confessions into my locker. I'm not talking about school parties where Steve followed me around, saying that he was protecting me from the other guys. But in fact, he simply didn't allow me to meet and communicate with anyone. In general, Steve became my headache and I didn't know how to get rid of him. And then one day, one of my good friends, Robert, suggested that I pretend at school that we were dating. His plan was simple. Steve would see that I preferred another guy to him and leave me alone. For me, it was a chance to get rid of an obsessive fan, so I agreed. The next day, Robert and I came to school holding hands tightly. You should have seen Steve's face. He seemed to have turned pale and red at the same time. In a conversation with classmates, Robert and I loudly announced that we were dating, and the one for whom this little performance was intended heard us. During the break, Steve came up to me and said that I had made a big mistake by choosing Robert over him, and that I would definitely regret it. The meaning of his words only reached me in the evening when Robert called me and told me that he was in the hospital. As it turned out, when he was walking home, he was attacked by a group of unknown guys. They severely beat him, saying that he wrongly took something and it would be better for him to return it. It wasn't difficult to guess that they were talking about me. Of course, Steve denied his involvement, saying that he spent the previous evening at home and that this can be confirmed by all members of his family. It was impossible to prove that those guys had beaten Robert at his request. I suggested ending our fake relationship as it could be dangerous for him, but Robert refused, as he was convinced from personal experience that Steve would go to any measures to achieve his goal. I admit, I even had a certain phobia. It always seemed to me that Steve was watching me. Wherever I went, I could feel his eyes on me. I was afraid that at any moment he might kidnap me or attack me. Stupid, of course, but the incident with Robert really scared me. When Robert was beaten up again a month later, I couldn't stand it and said that we would no longer pretend to be a couple. His life and health are more important to me. This time, Robert agreed, but promised to protect me in case of anything. In general, all my friends, seeing the situation I was in, sincerely sympathized with me. They tried to always be there and not to leave me alone, so that this psycho couldn't get to me. One day, when I had a break and was sad, my classmate Tina came up to me. We always communicated well, but we weren't particularly close. She said that she had heard from her friend about my torment with Steve, and about the fact that a relationship with another guy didn't stop him. But she had an idea that might help. The fact that even strangers are worried about me made me smile, and I decided to listen to Tina's idea, which turned out to be very unexpected, but perhaps might work. Anyway, Tina suggested that I pretend that I'm dating her. Can you imagine? According to the girl, Steve should be repelled by the fact that I am no longer interested in guys. After all, this means that he definitely has no chance. This idea was, of course, questionable. I told Tina about the attacks on Robert, but she was sure that Steve wasn't so crazy to attack a girl. I really wanted to believe it. I was so desperate that I agreed to Tina's proposal. Of course, this shocked everyone at school. Still, a gay couple who doesn't hide their relationship. But Steve just laughed when he met us in the hallway. He openly told me that he would never believe that I had suddenly switched sides and now liked girls. To which Tina, standing next to me, laughed out loud and then quickly kissed me on the cheek. And then she told Steve that he would have to accept defeat because she wouldn't let her girlfriend be offended. Even for me, her statement came as a surprise. But I must say that she pretended better than Robert, because at school the truth never left my side. By the way, I liked spending time together. We found a lot of common interests and topics for conversation. And even after school, we didn't break up, but we went to the movies together, to cafes, just for a walk. There was a feeling that I really had a relationship, and one that completely suited me. Tina was very attentive, caring, supportive. She would always cheer me up or make me laugh. We became very close, and I couldn't even imagine that it was possible to find a person who would be so perfect for me. I didn't notice how much I got carried away with a game with Tina and fell in love with her for real. It wasn't easy to admit this to myself, but after a month of a fake relationship with Tina, I realized why I didn't like any guy before, and they all seemed somehow different to me. Speaking of guys, Steve believed in my relationship game with Tina. For the first couple of weeks, he still laughed and said that I was behaving stupidly. But watching us, he noticed that my girlfriend and I were inseparable and spent all our free time together at school and beyond. Steve came up to me and said that now he understood the reason why I always refused him. Tina was glad that everything worked out for us, and it seemed it was already possible to stop our game. but neither she nor I stopped. Now, I'm trying to find the courage to admit to Tina that I'm in love with her. I don't know how my friend will react, and I'm very afraid of losing her because my confession could ruin everything. Would you admit it if you were me? Maybe Tina's offer to help me was a manifestation of sympathy for me, and I will be happy to read your advice and words of support in the comments to this video. I hope you liked my story. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel with life stories. And in order not to miss new videos, turn on notifications. Bye, everyone!